Hello, world. This is your host, Melody Garcia.
And I'm Janie Lacy.
Welcome to our podcast, Life Unscripted.
A podcast like none other, as we take you on a journey to share real-life stories of some of the most iconic influencers in the world who have broken the scripts that once chained them.
We will hear about their stories of breakdown to breakthroughs, golden wisdoms, and actions that took their life into meteoric levels.
Our goal is to always provide our listeners values and applications that will allow you to live your best life.
Welcome and enjoy our show. Welcome to Life Unscripted. I'm your host, Melody Garcia.
And I'm your host, Janie Lacy.
We would like to welcome you to none other than Paul Brunson's living room. We are actually in Washington, D.C. for the launch of our Season 2 Life Unscripted podcast and Season 1 of Life Unscripted television show.
We have our very, very special guest who is one of my mentors. He's also an entrepreneur. He's also a TV host. He's gone from investment banker to matchmaker to now executive producer. So we are looking forward to sharing his journey with you today on Life Unscripted.
Let's get started. We'll bring in Paul Brunson here in a minute.
Well, welcome to Life Unscripted. We are here with none other than my mentor, Paul Brunson. Thank you so much for being with us.
It's a pleasure to be here. Well, thank you for being in my home.
Well, thank you for having us in your home.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
So kicking off with the question that we usually ask our guests.
Okay.
To be at the legendary status that you are right now, right, would have started with something like this. What was the deepest pain you've experienced that became a catalyst to your purpose?
All right. That's a super deep question. Do I have an hour? Do I have an hour?
We have an hour, and then it'll be edited to 5 minutes.
Cliff Note version.
Yeah. Well, first is, I'm honored that you said at the legendary level. I definitely don't think I am. If you talk to my wife or my boys, they'll say, I'm definitely not legendary, right? So that I appreciate. And so in terms of pain points, I mean, there are pain points, I think, that drive, that are like, that are catalyst moments. Mm-hmm. Right before we started, I was talking to my good friends here that are behind the camera, and we were talking about Kanye West, of all people, and about how it was through traumatic events that drove through Kanye's greatness. And I think that was a brilliant statement. Brilliant statement, guys. See, now our shots are going to be great because we've shotted them out. Like our shots, the sound is going to be awesome. But really, it was a brilliant statement. And I think that through trauma, our brilliance really does show. And typically what ends up happening is that we either shut down or we outperform through trauma. But what you'll find, like Kanye and I think through myself, is that we live through many traumatic moments, and it's about reflection. And so, it's uncanny that you say that. I'm not trying to bring down the whole mood here, but my grandmother passed away last night. Mm-hmm. And so, and it's what's interesting is that it's one of these experiences where, okay, I can either look at it and retreat. I could have called and said, I'm sorry, I can't do this interview. Oh, sorry, I can't do this. I can't do that. Or I can look at her life, celebrate it, pull from it lessons. How can I learn? How can I build up? And so I think it's more so of a mindset. And so I can't pinpoint one. I mean, that was one that just happened within the last 24 hours. Tragic things, I feel like, continually happen. But from one perspective, they're tragic. From the other, I look at it, okay, she was in her mid-90s. She had phenomenal kids. She came from Jamaica and she made something of herself from nothing. I look at her story as a story of triumph. Mm-hmm. And so it's not tragic. It's not necessarily a pain point. It's more of a celebration of the journey.
So it's in gratitude.
Yes.
Right? It's truly, when you look at this, and we thank you so much for honoring us in this space, and even with the recent events that had taken place, right, last night in your family, is just epitomizing, again, just the gift of gratitude. You can look at it, as you said, from a tragedy space of going, I can't do this, but being able to push through and say, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you for this gift. Thank you for the 90 years. Thank you for giving birth to our mothers and our fathers that brought us to this space.
Right.
So thank you so much for that.
Right. Thank you for the beatings, Grandma. Thank you.
For the lessons.
Thank you for slapping my... But really, it is. Thank you.
Yeah, so this is now Life Unscripted, Janie, is now a legacy in memory of your grandmother.
That's powerful.
Today.
That's powerful.
And that is what embodies life unscripted, because life is unscripted. We can't predict what's going to happen. We're either going to respond to it or we're going to react to it. So the very fact that you shared that with us is going to lead me to asking you another question.
Okay.
And that question is, when we're on our journey, or when you were on your journey, we're all on a journey in life, some of the pain points along the way lead us to where we are now. But what were some of the lessons that you've learned from either mistakes or failures, or even from grandma?
Yeah, it's about, I think it's about clarity. So it was interesting. I was having breakfast with a friend of mine. He's kind of consoling me, right? And he said something that I thought was really profound. He said, when you look at any event that's happened in your life, there was always a driver to that event.
Yes.
And when you reflect back on that driver, you always think one of two things. Either I'm happy that I attempted and I went down that path, or I regret going down that path. And what you want to do is, when you look at your life at the end, you want to look back and say, okay, I had few regrets and I was happy with, right? So for me, what I try to do is I try to look at every event, every experience, and pull from it something that I can learn. So therefore, there's never a regret. And it's, so Amy Cuddy, I'm a big fan of Amy Cuddy and her book Presence.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things she talks about with regard to presence is your ability to come from an event and not feel regret, right? If you can move from an incident and not feel regret, that means that you had true presence in that event. So for me, it's about a practice of not feeling regret. So some of the things that I do, for example, is literally every night, this is like, I'm not exaggerating for the cameras here, like this is real talk, is every night I think about at least 3 things that have happened that day that I can learn from, right? Things that, like, man, I shouldn't have been late today to my own interview. Like, that was bad, right?
Life is unscripted.
Life is unscripted. Like, but so then what could I have done better? Maybe I should have stepped up and told my friend, hey, sorry, I have to, like, what could I have done better? And what ends up happening is I take all of those, like the accumulation of all those little lessons add up to, I think a better life. So I think it's about the reflection on those incidents. That's the most important piece. And that's really what life is about. That's all we have are the memories.
That is, every moment we're making memories. Isn't that right,
Absolutely.
Melanie?
Yes.
And so that brings me to the other question that common audience wants to know, right? Again, legacy, iconic figure, right? Even though but again, the impact you've had to the world, you never probably would have thought 15 years ago, 20, even 10 years ago, that you would have this much impact in the work that you're doing,
Right.
and the value that you're adding to the world. There's a lot of competition out there, a lot of competition. How do we maintain our originality? What are those lessons that that you just shared with us, that brings about the strength of our originality? Because a lot of, whether it's an entrepreneur,
Yes.
or corporate, or in my case, in Janie's case, single moms, there's a lot of competing priorities. And then you have the competition of the marketplace,
Yes.
of trying to be not necessarily the best, but the original of your craft. What are lessons that you can share with the audience today on how do we maintain, much less recognize what we are original about, and then really strengthen that?
Yeah, okay, this is a really good question. All right, So Janie knows I'm addicted to books. Okay, addicted to books.
Love it.
So I'm going to keep dropping books. So another one of my favorite books is Cal Newport's So Good They Can't Ignore You, right?
Okay.
I love this book, and I believe everyone should read this book, okay? What Cal argues in this book is that what you need to figure out is how you could be so good at something that the world can't ignore you, right? Think about that. So good at something that the world can ignore you. So you think, okay, basketball, LeBron James, so good. We can't ignore the fact that he's so good at that, right? So good they can't ignore you. Now, what I've learned through life is that the one thing that you can be so good at, basically better than anyone else, is being you. Now, you think about that, and the woo-woo folks get me. Woo, I get you. I see what you're saying, right? I'm feeling it. Everyone else is like, what? That's corny. Like, what is that? But really what that's about is it's about understanding that your uniqueness is truly your power. Now, people can better grasp that today than they could 15 years ago. Because 15 years ago, it was really about, okay, how can I be like everyone else? How can I have a career like everyone? But today, what we're realizing is that what allows you to stand out, What allows you to have attention and recognition is to be able to figure out all the things that you love about yourself and then put a spotlight on it. Instead of trying to minimize those things, you put a spotlight on it. So for example, maybe 10 years ago, 15 years ago, I would have probably hit, oh yeah, it's kind of nerdy to read a lot. Like I'm not going to talk about the books, but I put a spotlight on that, right? This is something that I'm very proud about, right? And by the way, most people don't read. This is terrible. I would say, like, most of us don't read.
It's a lost art.
It's a lost art. And so you put a spotlight on these things. So I think that the key, right, is what you want to do is you want to figure out, who are you? What are all of the quirks? What are all of the things that you believe make you different? And instead of just exhibiting those things, you want to put a spotlight on it. That's even in parenting. So I have two boys, 5 years old and 8, right? And so like when my son, like I taught my son how to do the nay thing, like do the duff, like all that, right? So you think, okay, is that something that as a parent like you should do? But it's kind of like I'm kind of a little weird, right? So I put a spotlight on that with the parenting, and then you think, so good they can't ignore you. Those are the things that will be memorable to him. Those will be impressionable to him, right? Those are the things that make me who I am relative to someone else. So the whole key is that you just want to identify those things and then put a spotlight on it, because your uniqueness is truly your power.
I love that. Uniqueness is your power.
Yeah.
Take note.
Yes.
And read lots of books.
Yes. Yes.
And being that you've been my mentor now for, I guess it's going on 2 years, I've picked up more books.
There you go.
I'm reading more books. I'm meditating. I'm getting up earlier and exercising.
There we go.
So the power of influence through mentorship relationships by people that you admire, and you spotlight their success, which is you to me. So when you think about that, there's lots of different things that you've influenced in my life, and I'm constantly now reading and trying to find out how can I read and actually get the hardcore book so I can do all the things that he's telling me to write in the
Yes, taking notes. Good job. Okay. Yes.
So with that being said, who has influenced you? Who were the mentors in your life, and how have they impacted who you are sitting here today?
Well, let me say congrats on the reading, the meditating, the mindfulness, and the exercise. That's really, I think, the foundation to everything else. So congrats on that. I was going to say congrats on that, right? The second piece there is that you talked about reading, right? I think that mentorship can come from a distance, and there's power in that. You think about a book, people spend an extraordinary amount of time. People like Robert Greene, for example, who's written Mastery and 58 Laws of Power, like Human Nature. They will literally spend 5, 6, sometimes up to 10 years pouring their life into 300, 500 pages. So that in itself is incredible mentorship, right? If you can't sit at Robert Greene's, feet. So that's really where mentorship begins. But I also believe that it's important to be able to have real life mentors, that people who share your values, people who not only walk their talk, but you can literally witness them walking their talk. So for me, you asked the question, we're sitting right here, is this woman here, Peggy Cooper K. Fritz, I would say has been one of the most influential mentors in my life. Now she passed away 2 years ago, and but she was she was an incredible entrepreneur, educator, media kind of darling. She built the school, Duke Ellington School of Performing Arts, that Dave Chappelle went to. She had the largest collection of Black art in the world. She's the one who got my wife and I on collecting art. She changed my life, but she didn't change my life by the things that she said. My wife and I, one of our favorite things would be to go over to her house and just have dinner with her, right? But it wasn't the things she said, it was what she did. Our actions are incredibly powerful. And to look back and say, okay, she decided to go here, or she decided to do this instead of that, like her actions, being able to witness that. And that's why I think up close and personal mentorship is of higher value than the books. But if you can't get it in the books, but people like Peggy Cooper K. Fritz, people like my dear mentor Enver Yücel, who actually I'll see this Friday, who's this billionaire out in Turkey. He doesn't speak English. This is a fascinating mentor-mentee relationship. He doesn't speak English, and I don't speak much Turkish. Like I have 2 languages. I've got English and some Ebonics down. but I don't have like the Turkish piece
Sure.
down. And so we've had a relationship now for 15 years.
Wow.
And we can sit and have a conversation and we don't speak each other's language. Now think about that for a second. Like it's wild, but we can. And so he's been a dear mentor of mine, watching the actions he's made. And I think what stands out to me most with mentors like this is being able to see how they not necessarily balance, but prioritize their life. Like to see someone say, "Oh, I spend X amount of time with my family," is one thing, but to go over to Peggy's house and see her conduct business, but see that she brings her kids to the table while she's conducting business is a whole nother lesson. The actions, So without these people, I wouldn't have a roadmap. And I don't think I would have as much belief in myself, because the last thing I'll say about them, and this is no disrespect at all to them, is that being in their presence, I realize, wow, they're humans just like me. They have faults just like me. They don't understand certain things just like me. They're human. But look at what they've achieved, the impact, the legacy, the money, the wealth. It's look at what they've done. But they're human just like me. And so being in their presence and watching those actions has helped a tremendous amount.
To remember that they're human and not to put them on a pedestal, but to honor their legacy and what they've achieved and take something from it as far as a roadmap.
Great summary. You'd be great at Cliff Notes.
She's the Cliff Notes.
I know.
You have a great mentor, Melanie.
Yes,
my
you do.
goodness.
I'm seeing this
That was like a
organically.
30-second summary on 30 minutes. That was good.
And the one thing, too, that he really touched bases on, is that heart communication supersedes a common language. Because not having that clear communication on the language, it's still been a mentorship relationship for 15 years. So I want you to think that in building relationship truly is about the heart communication more than just the linguistic skills that we have.
Yes.
And time is flying by, Janie.
It is.
Time really is, because I am going to close this with 2 questions right here.
Okay. Uh-oh, that was a dramatic pause.
Yes.
Okay.
Get ready, Paul. Get ready. Yeah. Current Paul Brunson, with everything that you have, your beautiful family, your children, the journey you've had, and all the ageless years we're not going to name, what would you say to your 5-year-old self?
My 5-year-old
Your
self.
5-year-old self.
I would say, stop picking your nose and wiping it on the wall. Yeah, it's disgusting. I don't know why you guys do this. At 5, quite honestly, at 5, it's hard because I have a 5-year-old. And so I think, he doesn't understand much of what I say, but he understands everything that I do. So I would, if I could go back, and I would try my best to mirror the person. I think that, we'll be what we see physically, which is the whole conversation around mentorship. So I would want to just see the mirrored image of greatness. And quite honestly, I had that in my father. My father's, who's still alive, he's a phenomenal person. But if I had to say one thing in particular, I would say, actually, what I tell my guys, that simply is every night I tell them, I say, never give up and be kind. Those are the 2 things. Never give up and be kind. That's the recurring theme. So I would tell myself that, because I've given up a tremendous amount of times, and there was a whole period of my life where I was a thug. So I would say never give up and be kind.
That all the adversities lay down to be the foundations of where you are today. So now we're going to fast forward into the future, 100 years from now.
Okay.
What is Paul's legacy to the family and to the world?
Good. So 100 years, I probably have great-grandchildren in the zone. Okay. So when they are thinking about great-grandpa, right, what are they thinking? I want them, this is maybe, I don't think this is actually morbid. I think that it's important to reflect on, what do you want said at your funeral? This is actually an exercise I do with a lot of my mentees because it helps you to create a North Star in your life. Like, so when you have all of these family and friends get up, what do you want them to say about what you've done, right? One of the things that I always write down as a handle sometimes is I say, okay, I have one hand pushing forward. So I'm constantly, like going through the weeds, I'm trying to blaze this path, right? So I have one hand pushing forward. And then I have one hand like this, reaching back to say, okay, anybody else who wants to come along for the ride, I'll bring you. Come on, Janie, let's go. Like, anybody else, come on. And I'll take the bullets first. Like, I'll take it, right? I get to the treasure first, though. But but I will take that brunt if anyone else wants to come along or learn from me. So that's, in essence, I just want them to know that that's how I live my life. I live my life constantly, looking for the paths less traveled or not traveled, not traversed. And at the same time, I had one hand back and open to anyone else who wants to come along and show them and learn from my lessons. Yeah.
Janie.
That is absolutely beautiful. And I just want to thank you so much for having us in your lovely home. And thank you for being who you are. I've learned so much from you, and I'm continuously learning so much from you. And this exercise we have going on right now is challenging me. But I love a good challenge, and I love your honesty and you being authentic and you being a man of integrity and being able to share a lot of your bumps along the way with us as mentees. So truly am honored to be here with you and continuing working with you, because life truly is unscripted, and there's many things that are going to happen along the journey, and having people along the way that can be there to mentor you, coach you, to rely on is so important in life. So we have to remember, as we are continuing this journey for Life Unscripted, that to unscript the life that you know in order to be the best self. So I'm Janie.
And I'm Melody Garcia. Until next time on Life Unscripted.
Thank you for tuning in to Life Unscripted. Please don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review.
For more information and how you can be a guest on our show, send us an email at lifeunscriptedjm@gmail.com. Until next time, this is your host, Melody Garcia
And Janie Lacy.